All right, y'all, welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys being here. Let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the myths, the misunderstandings, some of the mishaps that people get into when it comes to points and miles, especially when you're just starting. These are questions or just things that really come up when it comes to finding really great award opportunities or booking flights on points. This always happens when I'm helping other people book trips for them and they have a lot of questions or they want to go out of a specific airport. So let's talk about those misunderstandings and those myths. The first one we are going to talk about is that not all airports are going to be the same. When it comes to finding award availability or flights on points and getting the best available options and the best routes and or the best cabins, best seats, best experience, typically want to put your focus on international airports to international airports. When you're doing award searches, even from a smaller or mid-tier airport, you don't want to do your searches out of those mid-tier airports because naturally those big airlines, those flights that are going to go internationally, and what I'm going to talk about, a lot of this is going to be catered towards international trips, mainly because there's a lot more nuance when it comes to international trips than there is when it comes to domestic trips, right? When it comes down to that, you want to focus your searches on international airports to international airports because larger airlines, more popular airports are going to have direct routes into larger international airports to other places that you want to see. So if you're in Kansas City and you want to get to Paris, there likely is not going to be a direct flight from Kansas City into Paris, but Chicago Ordway might have one, or DFW, or some of these closer airports that are international airports will have it. That is when you typically will take, if you can find award availability to the place or the destination you're looking to go, then you want to focus on that. Same exact scenario with international, like to Europe. A lot of people might want to go to Florence, Italy, or they might want to go to Venice, but those aren't really international airports. So you might focus your attention on anywhere in Europe because we know that we can get a super cheap flight from those cities, have a good experience over to Europe on a good seat with a good redemption, and then we can take the $100 flight into the city that we want to. Same exact scenario, stopover flights or connecting flights in the US. If you're in Kansas City, St. Louis, Missouri, whatever, Utah, you might want to focus on the international airports around you to then fly a cheap flight into those international airports and then find the redemption. Not all airports are the same, and this also goes with kind of the second piece, which is not all airlines fly out of certain airports. Some airlines may only fly to certain destinations from the East Coast or from the West Coast. Yes, there's certain things like Fifth Freedom routes where you can find valuable and good products out of those routes or out of those situations, but certain airlines and better international airlines are only going to fly out of certain airports. So a really great tool that I like to use to be able to understand what airlines fly direct into what cities is Flight Connections. This is a game changer in terms of just really shortening down the time of your searches, is understanding what airlines fly to certain airports, how many airlines fly out of that airport is going to be Flight Connections. You guys should utilize it. Absolutely, it is a fantastic tool. Not all airports are the same. Not all airlines are the same. And really, when it comes to finding award availability, we let the availability dictate the redemption. If I can find availability out of an airport, another international airport, and I can find a great deal, I'm going to take that deal because I know I'm going to get a good product, a good service, a better deal, save money, get more value, and then I can just take a cheaper flight into that airport because I found the availability. The availability is what is hard to find, so don't make it harder on yourself by trying to do a bunch of searches out of maybe a specific airport that you're currently typically fly out of. And the reason I want to bring that up too is the fact that a lot of people may only want to fly out of their airport. Let's say you only want to fly out of LAX, but LAX is actually a really popular airport. There's not a ton of availability out of LAX, but you might be able to find availability out of Seattle or San Francisco or Denver or Ordway. And if you can find that availability instead of just continuing to wait to hope that availability opens up, then you might as well book those flights because now you get that experience and that value out of your points a lot better than just hoping that something pops up. Now, the third one is going to be, just because there are a ton of cash flights showing does not mean that that is available for award flights or with alliances. Certain airlines will release certain availability at certain times of the year. Just a staple, usually it's a year before, so that's why availability is better earlier rather than later, and then sometimes really late availability if they haven't filled their cash flights or their cash positions. Just because there are 10 flights available on cash doesn't mean all of them are going to be available to book with an alliance or with award redemptions. Now, yes, if you went into Delta and you saw that all 10 of these flights, all 10 of these times are available there, yes, you'll be able to book those with Delta SkyMiles, but they may not be as much value. It might be a $300 flight. Delta might be charging 25,000 sky miles, but you actually might be able to use a partner like Virgin Atlantic or Air France to book that flight for 9,000 points or 12,000 points, where you can utilize American Express or Chase points, which you typically have a lot more of than Delta Sky Miles unless you're flying a ton. Just understand that just because there are a ton of cash flights available does not mean that all of those are available. There may be 3 or 4 flights that you might be able to book, and maybe only two of them have business class flights, but they all have a lot more availability in terms of economy seats because there's way more economy seats on those flights, 300, 500 different passengers on those flights, than there's going to be with business class or first class. Number 4 is going to be flexibility is absolutely key. Flexibility is huge when it comes to getting the best redemptions and finding more opportunities. If you are someone that has to leave on a Friday every single time or has to leave on a Sunday every single time, these are also the most popular days for pretty much everyone else who is flying. So that means that these airlines are going to be able to fill those cash positions, which means there's not going to be that much award availability. So if you can be flexible on the days that you find award availability or search award availability, then that's going to be huge. Like I said, we allow the availability to dictate our redemptions. So a lot of people like myself and other travel hackers in the space, we find these amazing redemptions because we're allowing the availability to dictate our bookings, because we're finding them on a Tuesday or we're finding them within the month. That allows us to get the best redemptions. The difference would be this. If you were to look at, and I have another video on the channel explaining this, a United award calendar, not all 30 days of the month are going to have Saver Award availability, which on the United calendar, Saver Award availability technically just shows you that those flights are also available on alliances that you can book with other types of points partners. Maybe only 10 days of that month have Saver Award availability and have options for you to book within that month. So you might decide your trip off finding that award availability than saying, I have to leave on the 15th or I have to leave on this specific day. So flexibility is massively important. That's why we allow availability to dictate our trips. And it could be the difference between an award flight would be 80,000 points. And if you were to search on a specific day or a certain date, the difference between that flight may be 250,000 points. You're not getting as much value. You're not saving as much. You're losing a lot more points. Flexibility can be massively important. So be flexible with your dates. Be flexible with when you have to leave, when you have to depart. That is going to be massive in being able to do your searches. Number 5 is going to be that domestic first class is a lot more different than international first class and international business. So in domestic first class, many of you have seen it if you've been in an airplane before, right? You get larger armrests, you don't have 3 people, you have 2 seats, you get more leg room, you get some drinks, you get some more snacks, you get some of those benefits, but you don't get the lie flat seats. So this is why it is important to, if you're checking for award availability, to actually check the Airbus and the type of airplane that is flying that route so you can see what the type of product is. Do you have a lie flat seat or do you have a typical domestic first class seat? Now, mostly in the US, if you're flying domestically, you're just going to have those normal first class seats unless you're transcontinental and flying all the way across. But that could be really important as well, is just understanding, are you going to have a lie flat seat? Do you have an older product, a newer product, more space, a better experience, a better type of Airbus? That is going to be really key as well, is just understanding the experience internationally is so much better than the experience domestically, and international business class and international first class is way different than domestic first class. That's where we get multiple course meals, high class drinks, high class food, better service, better space, better lie flats, right? That is where that comes into play, is understanding the Airbus and the type of product you're actually flying. Another one I want to talk about is that domestic airlines, domestic US Airlines, United Airlines, American Airlines, Delta, they are not the best products when it comes to international. If you have an alliance with one specific airline, I would really look at the options on other airlines such as Qatar, Emirates, Japan Airlines, Cathay, Eva Air. These have amazing, amazing experiences. The service is so much different. Airlines within other countries have a different product and a different type of service than, what you would get out of America. Now, yes, Flagship is good. Delta One is solid. United Polaris is solid. But there are tons of way higher class options that are actually way more expensive flights that you can get even more value. You can get a greater experience. Domestic US Airlines aren't always the best airline that you can fly. There are tons of options, and a lot of these airlines are all a part of different alliances which you can book through alliance partners, and this is how we get our value out of it. So that pretty much sums up a lot of the myths, the misconceptions, the misunderstandings when it comes to points and miles and jumping into the game. One example I want to bring up, which brings it back to example one, is that a lot of trips that I help people book, a lot of people want to go to Asia. A lot of the alliances and the options to Asia can be tough to find real good award availability. But for example, if you're someone that wants to go to Bali, you might not want to look for your word searches directly into Bali because Bali isn't really an international airport. There really is not any direct flights to Bali from America specifically. What you really want to do is focus your attention on many of the airports in Asia. So just like we would do a connecting flight or a stopover flight to take the really nice international product internationally, you would also think the same way once you get to an international country, because that flight, that 10-15 hour flight over to Asia, that's where you want the comfort, that's where you want the service, that's where you want the product. So you might look at Bangkok or Singapore or Kuala Lumpur or Tokyo. You might look at those cities for your award searches because that's the majority of your flight. Look for those searches over to those cities and see if you can find availability over there. Depending on the alliance, you might be able to add in a connecting flight on that itinerary, or you can then book the 2, 3, 4 hour flight from the city in that country to the actual destination that you want to go to. So it's the same scenario, but that is a scenario that comes up all the time. Another thing is, like I said, I think I mentioned it earlier, if you just want to fly to LAX, right, be open to the flexibility of flying out of San Francisco or flying out of Seattle or flying out of DFW, because that's where you're going to get the experience. Don't complain if you can't fly to a certain city and then you have to fly economy 15 hours, right? Like, go fly the 3 hour flight, maybe spend an extra night. I always talk about stopover nights, using your chase points to stay at a Hyatt for a stopover night, and then take that great flight that allows you to fly 10 hours, 15 hours in luxury, in class. Be flexible. These are the things a lot of people have a misunderstanding with, they get frustrated about, but that's how the game is played, right? We're playing the game that allows us to save our money, save our points, have these amazing experiences. Or if you want, you can go spend $8,000, $10,000 on a flight. I know that wouldn't be me at this moment. I wouldn't be spending that money. That's why I love points and miles, because it gives me this incredible type of experience and gives me the opportunity to do it. This is what I talk about in my community. This is what I try to provide value to you guys on these videos, so that you can also have these types of options and learn how to play the game. That's what we do. We just learn how to play the game. That is that for you guys. I appreciate you guys being here. If you haven't, hit like, hit subscribe, join the free community, ask your questions, let me get to know you guys, but hit the subscribe button. Appreciate you guys for being here. Peace.